Good morning. It's Manage Your Critic Monday or Motivational Monday, whichever way you want to look at it, because when you manage your critic, you get clarity of what you want and the confidence to make it happen. Good morning and a gorgeous welcome to Step by Step Listening page, YouTube, and the Manage Your Critic community. Today we're talking about why is it so hard for you to put yourself first. Well, let's first of all just this is an expression I heard from my business coaches, my mentors, and for me personally, putting myself first really didn't come comfortable. It wasn't, I didn't like this first or second. It sort of like if I was going first then somebody else was going second. And the reason why it was so uncomfortable for me is because I remembered how it felt to be at the bottom of the pile, and I didn't want somebody else to experience what it felt like me. So it felt like it was an either or. It felt like the reason why I couldn't put myself first is because if I was going to put myself first, it would mean somebody else would have to experience the bit that I wasn't liking and things I was changing where I felt like I was last. So hopefully that makes sense. The other reason why I found that actually is a bit like the competitiveness as well. I didn't like competing because I used to think if I win, then someone else is going to lose. And that was based on an assumption that they would experience losing in the same way that I did. So the first thing I want you to think about is whether you putting yourself first or not first doesn't work for you. What is the purpose? What is the reason why you're doing that? And when I'm working with clients who have become really sensitive to criticism, they've often created a life where when they have a need, they will not help. Good morning, Susie. They will not do what's right for other people, for themselves, because they want to please other people, want to get other people to be okay. Now, I was speaking to a friend of mine at the weekend. I've got your hat on. I know. I thought I'd have a change today. We'll see how many people notice it and whether it makes any difference. I'm just playing with it today. But they're talking about why is it so hard to put yourself first? So a lot of it can be the stories that you tell yourself. So those of you who have read Manage Your Critic, you'll know the why is you and your story, and you matter, and your story has to include you. And so often, if you are somebody who really cares about other people, who are sensitive to the needs of other people, putting yourself first may feel like you're putting other people last, or it's all about you, and you might say things like, I'm being really selfish, and that might be the reasons why you don't put yourself first. So here's a different take on it. What if you weren't putting yourself first, but you're putting yourself equal to them? What if you were making it so that you were as important? So if you gave yourself, it's about not an either or, and I talk about this in the book in the questioning bit, is about the power of and. So what if it is about you being okay and them being okay? And here's the bit of a brain fart that might happen, is that the fact is that the reason why right now you are not putting yourself first is because you've assumed that if you put yourself first, they will not have their needs met. And that's because right now you might be in a pattern of behaviour of making sure that their needs are met at the expense of your own. So the assumption therefore is, if I get my needs met, it must be at the expense of their needs being met. But what if there was a completely different way to look at that? What if you could change your complete perspective, and rather than it being either or, it's a go, okay, so what they need is X, Y, and Z, and what I need is A, B, C. How can we both have that? And often we haven't gone to that next level of thinking. We've just, it's because you've always thought, and I remember doing it as a young child, I would be listening and I'd be going, okay, so Susie and I work together, so I might thinking, well, Susie prefers it this way, and so I may adapt my behaviour to work with the way that Susie works, but I would never necessarily speak up and say how I work at your best. So here's 3 things you can do. First of all, get clarity of what you want. So make sure you're writing a statement down. So if you are saying, I want to put myself first, and you do not truly believe it, you're the whole of your system, your head, your heart, your gut, your soul, your body, the whole of your system is not buying into this, that doesn't really believe it, then you are not going to do it. So first of all, if you're going to have a statement like, I want to be able to put myself first, you might want to just check what kind of first and what kind of myself, and remind yourself that that self is a kind and thoughtful and considerate and aware of other people's needs and wants. And when put, what kind of put? You might want to clarify, what do you mean? How are you going to do it? Are you going to suddenly just cut them out, or is it going to be a gradual process? Are you going to communicate what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, why you're going to do it? And when first, what kind of first? In my experience, if you get clarity of what you want and what you mean by what you say, and making sure you're not being mean to yourself or other people when you say it, there's no contempt or criticism going on for you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to have confidence in the process. So if you've always put everybody else first, and now you're saying you want to put yourself first, if that statement still works for you, what's got to happen between putting them first and you first? What's got to change? What are the steps you've got to go through? And what can often happen is, because it feels quite fearful and we're scared of it because it's unfamiliar, we can sometimes deliver that communication to other people quite harshly or fast, or like, because we're angry, I'm going to put myself first for a change, you need to just sort yourself out. Or we might not even say anything at all. We might just hope they won't notice, and we just quietly go off. But of course, a bit like me having a change of hat today, people do notice a change in behaviour, and they will make up all sorts of stories. And they might make up a story that, you don't care about them anymore and you don't love them, or they might make up a story that you are selfish, which, if you haven't already sorted out your own story in your head, their story is going to either conflict or convolute your own story, and then you're going to lose confidence. So get clarity of what you want, say what you mean what you say, don't be mean when you say it. Get confidence in the process so that you understand where you're going from where you are now to where you want to be. And recognize that any change takes time. So sometimes, you might, I remember sort of when I wanted to change behaviours, and I'll say when I started to realise I needed to get my own needs met a bit more, it wasn't about doing it, in first or neglecting anybody, but if I suddenly stop doing all the stuff I do to run around after my family, and I don't put them first, I'm not putting them first all the time, me suddenly not doing all those stuff for those is going to be a change for them. And whether I say it beautifully or I don't say it, it's going to be uncomfortable for people for me to change. So when I'm usually running around doing things, it's taken me a long time, like the last 18 months, 2 years, for example, to change some behaviours. So right here, right now, for example, one of the changes I did is, I don't even know where the detective hat is, by the way. I've put it somewhere. I was going to do some sewing with it and I can't find it. But I've committed to do these videos at 9 o'clock every Monday. And what I really want to do is my Keep Fit workout from 9:30 to 10:30. And so I had to make a decision. I either didn't do the workout and then I spent more time looking for the hat so that I could turn up okay, or I create a change. That change will have an impact on people when they watch the video or see things. But I have to be able to resource them and be okay with those changes. Like Susie's a bit upset that I've nicked her hat. If you've seen our team photograph, you'll know she's wearing this hat in the photograph. But it's just about that, knowing that when you change, it doesn't matter how nicely you say it, how clearly you communicate it, change is disruptive of our system. And some people love change and they embrace it and go, what does this make possible? Whilst other people, your little piece of change might be one change too many in their system. So maybe their boss has said something, maybe a friend has said something, and then you've done something. Your change is just one too many, and so it might have an emotional impact. And what can happen is when they have an emotional reaction to the change, you default to, oh, I shouldn't have changed, and so you go back to your old behavior because the feedback other people are giving you. Whereas if you can learn to go, okay, this is the impact of change, I still want to have time for my fitness in my case today, or I still want to not run around doing those things for my family anymore, and I want to be able to support them through this change process. I want to be able to ask them questions and find out what they need. And when they say, I want you to go back to being how you were before, I want to be okay with saying, I love you and I'm still here for you, and this is what I'd like to have happen. But you have to first have clarity of what you want, have confidence in the process, but you need to be able to change the way you give, receive and invite feedback whilst you and the people that are impacted by your decisions go through the change. And if you are sensitive to criticism, it's really likely the minute somebody is unhappy with something, you might change back to the old way of being. Whereas actually having the courage and the confidence to hold that space and listen to what's happening for them is often all they need to be okay with the change itself. Hope that makes sense. It's a quick video today. Lizzie's got, I love the new hat. I still struggle sometimes to use the word instead of but. The word and instead of but. Yes, so it's really important. And what Susie's saying is if you're giving feedback, thanks for the comment about the hat, Lizzie. I'm just trying some new looks out. I've realised I've got lots of hats that I like wearing. Sidetracking girls today. I'm glad you've joined me, because there was a little part of me that was in my dressing gown 15 minutes ago that just didn't want to come on and do the video, but because I know I've made this commitment and I wanted to be here, I wasn't really okay about, maybe that's why I was talking about putting my knees first, is that this is about giving you what I've promised, and I've also readjusted my diary to get my Keep Fit done as well at 9:30. I've lost it. I struggle sometimes to use the word and instead of but. So the power of and can be in two contexts. The one you're talking about, Susie, I believe, is when you're giving feedback, is to say, I want this, this is working and this is not working. Actually, I might be making it up. If you want to put the context of that in, when you're struggling sometimes to use the word and instead of but, what kind of struggle is that struggle? Because I'm making up a story that I know the context of that, and I was just going to go into mentoring head, and I don't need to do that today. So, going back to the title today, if you struggle to put yourself first, have a think about, what do you mean? I'd also be curious, where did it come from? Did someone else tell you that you need to put yourself first? Because if it's not your opinion and it's not your advice, it's not something you were, it's not even your language, that first thing doesn't sit well. I've been told that many years, and I'm not comfortable with putting myself first, but I am comfortable with putting myself equal, and for me to be as important as everybody else in my life. So I'm really, really okay with saying that I'm equal to and I'm as important, and therefore it's okay for me in this moment to ask for my needs to be met. But the reasons we probably won't do that is if we already have listened very carefully to everybody around us and we know what their needs are, we'll make assumptions that if we ask for our needs to be met in this moment, they will have to go without their needs being met. And that's not always the case. Often what I've noticed if it's done with love and it's done with good intention, then what actually happens is that you taking time and you creating a change in the system by doing what you need to do in that moment, as long as it's communicated with love and good intention, it creates an opportunity for them to grow and to try things differently and to do things in a different way. So they become more independent of you, maybe if it's a home thing, or you'll find they're actually quite capable of doing the jobs that you've been feeling you had to do for them or with them up to that point. So Susie, there are two things I want and feel is one or the other. I still find it hard to use, and for example, I want to attend all my networking meetings and I want to get my client work done. Instead of I want to attend the networking meetings but I have to get all my client work done. And so if we take through the 3-step process we've just done this, if you write down I want to attend all my networking meetings and I want to get my client work done, if you get clarity about what kind of meetings, what kind of all, and what kind of my are those networking meetings, you will give your system much more clarity of which ones you mean, because I know there's ones you can attend, there's ones you run. Get really clear what you mean by what you say. And then when you want to get your client work done, again, what kind of client work and what kind of done. So that's the clarity. Now, the bit that usually when the brain's trying to work it out, and it's confidence, is over time. So you might be really thinking about all of those networking and all of that client work in just this week. Whereas actually, if you were to say, actually, I want to do all of this networking and all my client work, and it was over a different time frame, just notice if anything changes. Because what happens in the confidence process is often our perceptions of time when we're under pressure narrows. So we're only like thinking this week. And so if we expand it over 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even a month, then what happens? And so it might be just noticing that maybe this week there's some meetings that you may choose not to go to, or there might be some meetings that this week you have to go to and you're moving client work. But if it's done over a longer period of time or a shorter period of time, just play with the time things and play with that. And so and also there's the other factor is to remember is sometimes we can't have what we want, and it's like you want. So and I also think about when you want to be at the client meetings and you want to get client work done and networking, what kind of want is that want? And my thing is to be aware of what's going on in the internal voice. Okay, because sometimes what's happening is that the reason we want to go to the networking, that one of them may have a higher priority right now, and you're going to have to, you need to create new clients, and you need to look after your existing clients in business. They both have to have equal opportunity. But check in with yourself, because if the reason you want to go to the networking is because you don't want to, I know you well enough, Susie, there's a likelihood both of those is about not wanting to let people down. So if you take it another level, go, okay, so if you're working at your best, that's like what? And then you'll get a better idea. So rather than trying to solve this problem at just the outcome level, you're going, actually, for me to be at my very best, what needs to happen? Because if you cannot show up and network at your best because you're worrying about the client work, or you can't do the client work because you haven't done the networking, then you'll probably find that they are more entwined than you think. So actually finding out how you work at your best will give you more clarity over which one needs to be done when. And that's one of the questions we know that you don't ask very often, is being a creator energy. You don't tend to ask the when question. And so just be curious about time. Yeah, I often feel I have to get it all done now, when in reality some of it can be done over a longer period, and being partly done is still working towards the end goal instead of only looking at getting it completed. Absolutely. And one of the things that can happen when we're kind of get for approvals, we go for quick wins because we get that sort of feedback straight away. Whereas sometimes we have to break the goal down into go, actually, if I did one page of this piece of client work and I did one bit of that, then there's still progress being made. Absolutely. And if you have to get it done now, that's when I look at people's confidence models, Susie. So really think about your time frame, because often when we're in flight, or freeze, we're in our reptilian brain, we're in red brain, our decision making becomes like now. And so knowing that we're in that kind of stressy feeling, that's when we're taking some deep breaths and thinking about this over a longer period of time, and what's one thing I can do towards that this week, or one thing I can do to that today, can settle your state. You can still feel like you're making progress, you're still like you're on track, and therefore you can start to make decisions that are actually better. Hope that's useful, and do let us know what you decide to do about networking and client work. Thank you so much for sharing that example. It's really helped me with the conversation today. And I will hopefully find my detective hat sometime today. If not, I've got a new one for networking today. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Have a great week, and I will see you back on Feedback Friday. Let me know what happens this week when you're noticing whether, does saying the statement you want to put yourself first work for you? It doesn't for me. I always have to say I'm equal and as important, rather than it's a sort of them or me, or either or, that we're equal and we're both got to have our needs met in those situations. And I know I'm very adaptable, so I can go without my needs for a certain period of time, but if I leave it too long, then I know I get overstretched, and then I get stressed, and then nobody benefits from a stressed Cheryl. So I'd much rather bring a sparkly Cheryl to the party, because I have asked for my needs to be met way before I've got overwhelmed, frustrated, and feel stuck. Have a fantastic week, everybody. Look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye.